Harold Jonker has been found innocent of his 4 charges for his presence and involvement with the Freedom Convoy. The RCMP, the political policing arm of the federal government, has released a report with enough honesty to say that it did, in fact, politicize their response to the convoy. While we're talking about the convoy and COVID, we might as well bring some news showing, yet again, that the jabs were poison, the state acted like tyrants, and the fringe minority was right after all. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 11 to 14 says this, quote, "Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. For it is shameful even to speak of the things that they do in secret. But when anything is exposed by the light, it becomes visible, for anything that becomes visible is light." Close quote. It's May 23rd. I'm Andrew DeBartolo. That's Matt Hallick. This is Liberty Dispatch.
Friends, welcome back to Liberty Dispatch, where we bring you conservative Canadian news and analysis from an unapologetically Christian perspective. Make sure that if you like what we do, you know what to do and that you get busy doing just that and that you subscribe to our page over on YouTube or Rumble or wherever you're getting us from. Please be sure to stay engaged, leave some comments, and most importantly, get over to our Substack, ldcanada.substack.com, where you can get all our content, full access to everything, interviews, what have you. We just did an amazing interview with Sam Cooper that you can only get the extended almost second episode, the 30-minute extra segment there that we did with Sam if you become a paid subscriber over at ldcanada.substack.com. I actually saw that we got a good number of subscribers from that episode, some only unpaid. So I would recommend that they get on the paid, because you can't get that full access without it.
They don't know what they're missing.
They don't know what they're missing. ldcanada.substack.com. Get over there, get that. You will be blessed by it for sure. We're having some great discussions over there. So
we have an interview coming up this weekend with John Speed from End Abortion Now. So same thing. The extended bit is only for paid subscribers. And also our 3 webinar sessions we did with Pablo from Bull Bitcoin. We will be releasing those soon, hopefully in the next week or so. I just have to edit the videos a bit and then give them to Matt to put the finishing touches on. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to make the 3 webinars available for free for everyone. But for our paid subscribers, they'll have access to the Q&A. So the Q&A was the live audience, people asking questions that Pablo and then some guys from Bitcoin Mentor were able to join in as well. So the videos will be for everyone. But if you want to get access to the Q&A, and there were some pretty interesting and I think helpful questions that came out of that, that's also only going to be for our paid subscribers. So make sure you get on that.
Awesome.
It's almost June, Matt. You believe it?
Dude, I cannot believe it.
It's almost June.
My daughter's almost 3. We are plucking forward in 2025. We're almost halfway through the year. It just blows my mind how quickly we're going through it. But that tends to be the case when you're busy having fun, Andrew.
Yeah, this June is our 16th wedding anniversary.
Well, praise God for that. That's big news. That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah. 16 years, 5 kids, still love going on dates together. She's a great lady.
Awesome. Yeah.
Exciting time.
Praise God for good wives.
Yes, indeed. Praise God for good wives, and also for good friends in the financial world to help us understand what to do with our wealth and with the resources that the Lord has given us. And I know, like, if you're watching this, you don't get your news from CBC. That would be foolish. You don't get your health advice from Dr. Fauci. He's a snake. And you probably don't take science lessons from Bill Nye because, well, he's just a pagan. So, and we know that because you're listening to the show. We know you didn't vote for Mark Carney. So when it comes to investing, why would you take your advice from the same characters? They all want you to stick with the big banks and keep investing in multinational mutual funds and passive ETFs. It's time to stop playing their game. Call Rocklinc Investment Partners. They're proudly Christian and Canadian. No ESG, no woke nonsense, just practical financial advice and shrewd investment management from leading investment professionals. Give them a call over at 905-631-5462, or you can send them an email, info@rocklinc.com. That's Rocklinc with the C, info@rocklinc.com. We have one mailbag
Indeed, we
bit to
do.
deal with. This was I got the when the email came in, I thought, oh Norm, you've stepped on a real landmine here. So I'm gonna be gentle. I'll try to be
Okay.
gentle.
Well, let
My
me
original
read.
response, my original response was much less gentle, but then I slowed down.
So people can imagine what your original
Yeah.
response
So
was.
I've matured. I've matured in my 40s. So yeah.
Well, there you go. So this is what Norm writes. Appreciate the feedback, Norm. Appreciate any comments that we get. Even the trolls on YouTube. Man, Andrew, we triggered the libs on YouTube. It's crazy. I don't know what YouTube's. We restarted our channel over there, and they seem to be recommending it to liberals because they're just their hair's on fire when they're watching our takes. But I'm here for it. So, anyways, this is what Norm has to say. You say they cannot put together a budget. Quote, that's fake news. Now, if you have been listening, the House will sit in spring for about 30 days. A new budget will come in the fall of 2025. Don't mislead people just because your woman didn't win the election. If you believe God is sovereign, then Carney was put in by God. God is in control. So, lot there in that short little comment. Andrew, what do you have to say? What's your reply?
So I think, Norm, that you're either mistaken or you're reading new information into our episode. So I want to, there's a little bit of a timeline here to make sense of it. So our episode, the one you commented on, that episode aired on May the 16th. So, which was a Friday, and it was filmed on May the 15th, which was a Thursday. So as of that day, as of the day the episode was released on the 16th, this was the most up-to-date bit of news directly from the finance minister, Francois-Philippe Champagne, or the Tortue. So I was corrected by a friend. That's my bad. I don't know why. Tortue means pie, but he looks like a crispy pie. So Tortue is better. That's French for turtle. He's a Tortue, but he could be either one. You know what? I was wrong in my intent.
He's a crispy turtle pie.
Yeah. I was wrong in my intent, but correct in my assessment. So, in any event, the finance minister said this, and this was the most up-to-date news that we had as of May the 16th. That on May the 14th, so 2 days prior, the government said clearly that it would outline its fiscal spending in a fall economic statement. That they specifically would not be tabling a budget in the fall, but this fall economic statement, which is sort of like a mini budget that the government typically provides each year. So May the 14th, finance minister says, we're not tabling a budget this fall. We're tabling an economic statement. May 16th, we say they're not tabling a budget this fall. They're tabling an economic statement. On May the 18th, which is 2 days after our episode aired, Mark Carney announces that the Liberals would, in fact, table a budget this fall after our episode. Okay? Norm, if you're watching or listening, your email came to us on May the 19th after all of this. So this is probably what happened. You probably listened to our episode at some point between the 16th and the 18th, maybe later. And then you probably saw the announcement that the Liberals would table a budget on the 18th. And then you got mixed up about the timeline. And then you emailed us saying, hey, fake news, they are tabling a budget. Correct. As of the time you emailed us, they decided to table a budget. But as of the time that we released our episode, they explicitly said they will not be tabling a budget. So that's the timeline, which means you're mistaken about the timeline. You maybe, you did a little bit of retro fitting, anachronism, reading back into what happened, kind of thing.
Yeah,
or you just find some sort of excuse to come at me, bro. But either way, the
we'll
point
be
is you're
charitable.
wrong. You're
We'll
wrong.
be
Yeah.
charitable. Yeah.
Your assessment was wrong. Your assessment was wrong, and we as of the time of release, our information was up to date.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So not fake news.
Now, Norm, you are right. God is sovereign,
Correct.
and obviously, it would be absurd if they didn't release a budget. So they've had a crisis of conscience, and the backlash has been swift, severe, and all around. So
now, the person I wanted to win didn't win, but I can assure you that's not Pierre Poilievre, and I'm not particularly butthurt about it either. Certainly not enough to lie on our show. So yes, God's sovereign. Carney's there for a reason. We're not fake news. Our facts were correct. Maybe get a little more sleep at night, Norm. Maybe if you're not getting enough sleep, you're mixing up. If you're sleep deprived, you mix up the days. I don't know what day it is. I forget. So get a good night's rest, right? Get lots of protein, get some sunlight, and then maybe that'll help you not to jumble up the days. Is that charitable? Was that charitable? I thought that was pretty charitable.
That was pretty charitable, Andrew.
Yeah.
Appreciate you writing in, Norm, and it would be good, though, if you maybe check the dates. Because for sure, by the time we did that episode, Carney was still like, no way, we're not doing a budget. Yeah. But praise God, Andrew, he's after much back. But, just on that
because he watched our show. I think he watched our show, and he's like, man, we got to put a budget out.
Yeah. But, like, how ridiculous is that? Like, because now, like, it's like the worst case scenario. Like, he must have the chutzpah on him. Like, that's what we're talking about. He must have thought, man, I can just do this. Like, I'm the guy. Like, the media is going to eat out of my hand. They're going to run cover for me no matter what I do. So I can just go out there. I can just be brazen and defiant in just breaking all the norms. I can just do it because they've covered it up so much for me. Why can't they do it again? But I guess that was one step too far. I guess when you add that, like we said, to him proposing to spend more than Justin Trudeau, it just became too untenable for the media to spin this thing. So they had to come at him, and I just think it's crazy because now you actually have to table the budget. So you can't hide like he wanted to, but you've already got the bad press, right? Like everybody already knows what you attempted to do. And now you just it was a no good, very bad first week of whatever Carney regime we're seeing. And I think that's a universal report, Norm and others. It doesn't just take us to make that assessment.
So let's move on to some good news. It's rare.
It's really good news.
It's rare we get to celebrate good news regarding what happened during the COVID era. Like, most of the news is they lost, this bad thing happened, all these people died. But this one is one of those times where we get to celebrate some good news. So,
and it couldn't have happened to a better guy. Too.
Yeah, here's a press release from our friends over at the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Quote, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is pleased to announce that Harold Jonker, a trucking company owner, has been acquitted of all charges related to his peaceful involvement in the 2022 Freedom Convoy protest in Ottawa. The decision was delivered by Justice Kevin B. Phillips of the Ontario Superior Court of Justice. Mr. Jonker, a trucker from West Lincoln in Ontario's Niagara region, this is where Dave Bilsma was mayor for several terms and where he is serving with the CHP, joined the Freedom Convoy as a road captain for the Niagara contingent and arrived in Ottawa on January 28, 2022. He remained in the capital for 3 weeks. During that time, he parked his vehicle along Coventry Road away from the downtown and was not fined or charged with any offenses while in the city. 15 months after the protest ended, in May 2023, police charged Mr. Jonker with mischief, counseling mischief, intimidation, and counseling intimidation. I actually had the pleasure of being able to sit down and interview Harold as I reached out to him once we found out the charges came.
Yeah.
And I called him and I said, I'd love to interview you. And he said, I don't know, we're kind of busy. We're just on our way to Ottawa. And I asked him, where do you live? And he said, I live in Niagara. I'm like, oh, are you passing by Kingston? He said, yes. I'm like, stop at my house. We'll interview you and I'll cook you hamburgers. And so he and his wife and one of his kids came over my place.
Great.
We did an interview in the little mini studio, and then we had a barbecue in the backyard before he went. So I've met him several other times as well. He was at the CHP convention where I was able to speak. I've seen him at a couple other events as well. So we have two videos we want to show you. The first one is Fleury, Mr. Fleury, who is Harold Jonker's lawyer with the JCCF, his thoughts on the case. And then the second video is going to be Harold himself reflecting on all of the happenings.
It was, I would say, unexpected to a certain extent. A criminal case is always an uphill battle. Defending anyone of any crime is always an uphill battle. So we're just absolutely over the moon in terms of Harold being acquitted of all four charges. So he was charged with mischief, counseling mischief, intimidation, counseling intimidation, in relation to his role in the Freedom Convoy. So for anybody who doesn't know Harold, he was a road captain for the Niagara region, and this was pretty uncontroversial at the trial. He led a contingent of truckers from the Niagara region to Ottawa. He liaised with police while he did that. They told him how to get into Ottawa and where to park. And then the big issue at the trial was exactly what happened after that. Where was Harold during the Freedom Convoy? What did he do? What did he say? Where did he park a truck? And the Crown did not have a lot of evidence on any of these issues. So what they relied on primarily is Harold gave a series of interviews to Fox News a number of times, but also to independent Canadian podcasters. And the Crown relied on those videos where at least one of them showed Harold downtown. At least one of them showed him in a truck downtown. Some of them, he's generally encouraging the Freedom Convoy, but he never goes as far as to say things like honk your horns, come here and park a truck or block traffic. He never says anything like that. He certainly expresses support for the convoy. Says that the convoy is going to stay right where it is. But that was the case against Harold, primarily those videos and a couple other witnesses who observed Jonker trucking trucks downtown, although they didn't know who Harold Jonker was, had never met him before. They had a couple police officers as well who made observations downtown during the convoy. And ultimately, because I should clarify this too, is that the Freedom Convoy itself was not on trial. It was Harold Jonker who's on trial. And the issue is not, did the Freedom Convoy commit mischief? And in fact, the judge found that the Freedom Convoy did commit mischief. But the question was, what was Harold Jonker's role, if any, in said criminal mischief? And he was left with a reasonable doubt that Harold Jonker had any role in it.
When we left at the end of the convoy, our Jonker trucking company was shut down for a week. We were sanctioned by the Ontario government, saying that our commercial registration number is sanctioned for a week, so we couldn't have any of our trucks on the road. And then when I came back as town councillor, I was found guilty of breaking the code of conduct according to our code of conduct lawyer, which I wasn't guilty of breaking. I didn't do anything illegal during the convoy, and but yet the integrity commissioner found me guilty of breaking the code of conduct. So I was docked basically 30 days of pay, which, you know, town councilors make pretty good money, but in West Lincoln, we're a small township, so I think that cost me in around $2,000 of salary, which I didn't really care about. But the JCCF encouraged me to file a judicial review against that, which I did with their help. And sadly, we lost that. Then I was actually served, served a subpoena saying that I've been added as Harold Jonker, and Jonker Trucking has been added to the big lawsuit that the Paul Champ and Zexi Lee have filed against the Convoy. So that happened, and then I all of a sudden was called by Niagara Police saying I need to turn myself in because the Ottawa Police have put out an APP. So I had to do that and turn myself in, found out I was charged with mischief, intimidation, and 2 counts of counseling an uncommitted indictable offense, which, woohoo! I feel like yelling, I feel like crying. But at the same time, it's still a weird mixed feeling because, okay, I'm not guilty, but there's still so many others who are facing what I faced, were found guilty, and so, yeah, I'm very thankful for what I heard yesterday from my judge, and yeah, the feelings you get are still kind of mixed, right? Because there's still so many that are in court, dealing with stuff. We still have stuff hanging over our heads, but we're going to move forward. We're going to win this.
So there you have it, Andrew. What a great attitude by Harold. And you can just see the, stand-up man that he is, that, even with that big win, he is concerned about others who haven't had the same success, who are, experiencing the same difficulties, have the same legal challenges hanging over their heads. And I think it just goes to show you, he's a man who, cares about others. And that's not apart from, obviously, why he supported the freedom movement, the freedom convoy. And I know that Mike sat down with Harold in his truck, I believe, during the convoy. Mike Thiessen, our former colleague, LCC, I saw Harold on many a podcast and expressing, why he thought it was necessary. We can be thankful for the outcome, for the vindication that he got legally.
Yep. I sent Harold a message actually when I heard the news. And so this just give you a glimpse of the kind of guy we're talking about. So I sent him a message, told him great news. I was glad for him, for his family. And he responded back, "Praise God from whom all blessings flow. He blessed the proceedings in so many ways. I'm looking forward to the next chapter in the fight for the truth."
Yeah. Undeterred. So, vindicated, yeah. Undeterred.
Thrilled.
I love it.
Still, I mean, he raised some good points that, Tamara Leach and Chris Barber have been found guilty. They're still waiting for their sentencing. The Coots 4 were dealt a completely unconstitutional, lawless deal, being locked up for years. And still some of them were found guilty and had to, are going to have to spend some time in jail because of it. But this is good news. I mean, it's just amazing to again, every time I look back at that footage, remember being there, remember what it was like to be in Ottawa in that time, chatting with Harold. It's just amazing to think that, here he is coordinating with police in terms of what to do, how to operate. And then 15 months later in vindictive fashion. And the whole council thing, people might have glossed over that, but when the Ontario provincial government passed Bill 100, and we covered it, a lot of people are still, may not know what that means, but Bill 100 allowed town councils to instruct the integrity commissioner or the integrity commissar, as Matt said, to now create and enforce a new code of conduct, which has never been done before in city council. City councils had their bylaws and their existing, rules of regulation, but now city councils all over Ontario had to create codes of conduct. And if any member of the council was found in breach of the code of conduct, they could lose their pay, they could be censured, they could be barred from meetings. So this is another example of a lawless, unconstitutional piece of legislation passed by the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party that was wielded as a weapon against someone who was engaged in a fully peaceful protest. And here's the thing: he was punished by the city council for breaking the code of conduct, but he was just acquitted of all his charges, which means he wasn't guilty. He didn't do anything illegal after all. So the town council was wrong, but they didn't care because they're a bunch of woke activists that use their new Marxist integrity commissar to do their dirty work. So, but good news for Hill. I'm glad for Hill.
Yeah, it's great news, vindication, and hopefully just one of many of these stories coming out as some of this stuff kind of. It's amazing how long the tail is, on some of this stuff. Not only the charges in his case, which was 15 months, but we're years removed here.
Well, the convoy was January 2022.
Yeah, I mean, so we're 3 years removed. So
3.5. We're halfway through. We're coming up on 4 years since the convoy.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man.
Which will be another. That's another show. We're still a bit away, but we need to plan a special show for the 5-year anniversary of the convoy, which would be in 2027. We need to
maybe do a documentary.
Well, I should maybe start to schedule people now to come on the show to have a special 5-year anniversary of the convoy. I have some people in mind. Yeah. Anyway, so good news for Harold, and we're glad.
Very good news
for him. Spotted good news. A rare spotted good news on the COVID craziness that we saw in our country.
And we got more of it in the episode, so stay tuned.
Being a member of our audience, you most likely do research, watch videos, and read articles that contain good and true scientific and economic facts. But these would be sources that some people in positions of power would call a fringe minority with unacceptable views. The truth is, protecting your privacy as you engage in the online world should be a high priority for you. I want to help your online security with something that is actually safe and effective, and that is private internet access, the world's most transparent VPN provider. A VPN, or virtual private network, hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. So, say you wanted to donate money to a lawful and peaceful trucker protest in Ottawa, and you didn't want the Liberal government tracking you down and freezing your bank accounts. A VPN would be your friend, just as any Canadian would. Private internet access will also never record or store user data, and their no-logs policy has been proven multiple times in court and by third-party audit. It's very easy to use. Simply open up the app, click to connect, and that's it. PIA VPN is available for all platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and many more. You'll also get to protect your entire household with one subscription. Our audience has access to an amazing special offer. If you sign up with private internet access by clicking on the link below and going to piavpn.com/libertydispatch, you will grab a discount of 83%. That's just $2.03 a month. And you'll also get 4 extra months completely free. I don't know if you've seen the price of eggs recently, but $2.03 a month for online peace of mind is incredible. Signing up for private internet access is risk-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and 24/7 customer support is available, so don't wait any longer. Protect your personal data, get out of Big Brother's sight, go to piavpn.com/libertydispatch to get 83% off private internet access with 4 free months. I'm very white in that photo. Very bright. Very shiny.
Yes,
in that video.
Yes.
Very shiny. I also got a little bit of lean going on. But like, lean back. Look at
you're comfortable. You're looking good. You're comfortable.
I was very comfortable. Anyways.
Yes,
I
indeed.
hope you enjoyed that, everyone. Let's move on.
Yes. So the entire response of the federal government, provincial government, the RCMP, and really basically all police services across Canada was directed by political maneuvering and statism, not truth and justice And everyone who was on the side of freedom, accountability, individual rights, well, they were victimized by the state. And Harold was just one example of that victimization. Well, a new RCMP report shows that the invocation of the War Measures Act, that rightly understood, as we've talked about, as well as the response of the RCMP and other groups, was far too politicized. So this is from the Western Standard. A comprehensive external review of the RCMP's response to the 2022 Freedom Convoy that describes the highly politicized, that's their quote, not ours, invocation of the Emergencies Act. The 92-page National After Action Review, codenamed Project Natterjack and led by retired Assistant Commissioner Eric Slynn, reveals significant shortcomings in 4 main sectors: command, intelligence, sharing, mobilization, and employee wellness as well. So the review details the politicization of the police response, particularly in Ottawa, where the RCMP and local police forces face pressure from the federal government, with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the helm, to crack down on the protesters. A federal judge in January 2024 ruled that Trudeau Liberals' invocation of the act, which was revoked after just 9 days on February 23, 2022, was both, quote, this is them, unnecessary, quote, and unlawful, okay? That is their analysis. So there you go, Andrew. So we have the fact that judicially the invocation of the former War Measures Act of what is the actual name?
They call
now?
it the Emergencies Act.
The Emergencies Act. Yeah, sorry. That was unlawful, unnecessary. And then on top of that, an external review of the RCMP's actions goes on to say that, they kind of failed big time in 4 central areas of how they dealt with the response.
Yeah.
And it was all because of a political bent, right?
Yep.
The RCMP is supposed to be, right? I mean, we covered this. We showed how they're definitely not. They were very political, and it went up to the top. They're supposed to be their own kind of entity. The kind of, it's not under the command and control of the feds directly, but what we're seeing
except
when
Justin Trudeau and the federal government wants to push anti-handgun legislation.
Yes.
Then they get the director of the RCMP to interfere with an investigation in order to provide the justification for the anti-handgun legislation. Other than that, they're supposed to be.
Well, and we pointed, Andrew, that was a story that was basically concurrent with, or even predated the trucker convoy, because I remember covering that situation at the same time, and we were saying, like, look, despite what the RCMP is supposed to be, it's clear that this is just a government police force, and they don't have the independence that a lot of people think that they do. And technically they're supposed to have, because look how they're working in conjunction, and look how everything's politicized. And now, obviously, we have a report who's saying, you guys were right.
So we don't just want to take from the Western Standard. I want to read you a portion from the report as well, so you can see what they have to say. And I guess it takes a retired RCMP officer who's not currently in the swamp and on the take to maybe see this objectively. So this is what the report says. This is a portion. We've linked to the report. It's a lengthy one, but this is at least one of the parts I wanted to read. Quote, interviewees and survey respondents felt that the police response to the convoy events were highly politicized. This was particularly the case with respect to the convoy events in Ottawa, where various elected officials and senior Government of Canada officials were of the view that it was the RCMP's responsibility to resolve the blockades in Ottawa. The RCMP in Ottawa carries out federal policing activities, which includes, but is not limited to, protective policing and national security investigations. As the police of jurisdiction in Ottawa, Ottawa Police Service has the primary responsibility to manage the police response to all demonstration activity. The RCMP can provide support to Ottawa Police Service when assistance is requested. However, the RCMP cannot assume command and control of the police response to demonstration activity, as some officials suggested during the Convoy event, close quote. In other words, you had a lot of MPs saying the RCMP, we're going to send them in. They're our federal police to clean up the mess because they'll do what we say. And interestingly enough, there were text messages that were unearthed of RCMP officials specifically saying they were looking forward to, quote, stomping some protesters, close quote.
Yes.
Was a direct quote. So these were the RCMP jackboot goons that did this. But here you have, and it was a lot of elected officials that wanted the RCMP to step in because they do the bidding of the federal government. But at least here in the report, you have the honest, well, no, that's actually not their job. The Ottawa police has jurisdiction. The RCMP can support, but their job is not to take point. Their job is not to be sent in by the federal government. It's only to serve at the request of the Ottawa Police Service, and that's not what happened. Interestingly enough, I saw very few Ottawa Police Service vehicles and officers in Ottawa because most of the Ottawa Police Service who lived there didn't want much to do with it, which is why the vast majority were RCMP, Toronto Police. I saw some Windsor Police. I saw some Vancouver Police, and obviously all of the goons from Quebec who didn't have badge numbers and the riot gear. But Ottawa Police Service is supposed to direct it, and they didn't because it was very much politically driven.
No,
Absolutely.
exactly. And I mean, I'm glad you brought up those text messages because it just goes to show you kind of the mindset of the men and women who were going into Ottawa to smash some skulls, to get a pound of flesh off of these protesters. And I mean, there was all sorts of disastrous nonsense and honestly, truly unlawful, unconstitutional behavior on the part of the feds, on the part of law enforcement. And I don't know, either they didn't properly know whose jurisdiction this stuff was, or they didn't care. But
they didn't care because that's the whole point of the Emergencies Act. Yeah. The whole point of the War Measures Act is we can throw the rules out the window, and now the federal government can do whatever they want.
Yes, exactly. And, even I think we covered it at the time. We went in depth on kind of the prerequisite for the actual ability to invoke the War Measures Act.
The Oakes test.
Well, was it the Oakes test? No, I think that's something different.
Sorry, that's the charter.
Yeah, that's for the charter. Yeah. It's not the Oakes text, but it was
CSIS has clearly outlined that these prerequisites must be met, that the local police doesn't have the ability to deal with it.
In the War Measures Act, like there's like guidance on like what the threshold is. So according to the War Measures or the Emergency Act, they lay out like 4 different criteria that they had to meet, and they didn't, I think, objectively meet any of them, and that's why. At the end of the day, even a judicial review of the situation says that, obviously it was unwarranted and unjustifiable and unlawful. Like that's the language they use. But yet it's amazing to me that we have men like Harold and, Tamara Litch, Chris Barber, a bunch of these people who they're being treated as the lawbreakers when it was law enforcement, it was the feds, it was those in political power who truly objectively were breaking the law. But Andrew, the report at least goes on to acknowledge the following. It says this: while the demonstrations and blockades were eventually resolved, it wasn't without a lot of questions. Shaken trust and confidence in the institutions of government, including the actions and response of the police at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels. The RCMP acknowledges that maintaining and, in some areas, restoring public trust and confidence in policing after such an intense period of disorder requires a candid examination of all facets of the RCMP response. And
no, it don't. It requires firing all of them, and it requires a generation of totally new police officers. What we know what's needed. What's needed is the RCMP needs to go through a similar kind of turnover as the Israelites did in the wilderness. That the entire generation of them have shown themselves to be compromised, and I know this because all the ones who weren't compromised were fired because of the work that they fired, or they suffered for it. So
yes,
the entire generation of officers needs to go bye-bye, retire, and then a new generation needs to come up, and hopefully we can trust them again. But that's not for another 20 or 30 years.
And Andrew, that was something we talked about. We talked about the vaccines, the jabs, these mandates as entryism, as a form of, stacking the deck of people that you want in institutions, right? So you put these mandates in for various government programs, for various institutions like the RCMP, for healthcare, stuff like that. And what you end up having that is any conscientious person with morals and ethics and scruples, anybody who's thinking for themselves who might possibly object, well, they become a target for losing their job. And then all you're left with is, at the end of the day, unscrupulous sycophants who are willing to, go along to get along, who maybe in some cases love the power of the institution. That's why they're there, for whatever reason. And that's who you're left with. And then when that's the type of characters that you're left with, these sorts of things tend to happen. But the fact of the matter, Andrew, is in God's created world, ultimately leadership and authority in every sphere is a trusteeship. And if you lose the trust of those that the Lord has put under you, you're subverting your own leadership. And that's what's happening with the RCMP. That's what's happening with all our institutions society-wide, is they're dying a death. They know it. They're trying to glom onto whatever power they still have left, usually through censorious bills or what have you. But it's gone. That trust is gone. And the only way you can gain that back is by being transparent, being open, honest, by winning back the affections and trusts of those who you have, gravely broken their trust. And that's something that, to be honest with you, all these institutions have not shown a real willingness to do that, to look in the mirror, to come face to face with just what they did, and to issue the necessary and requisite apologies. And if they do repent, I think, we should be quick to try and restore them if it is genuine. But we haven't seen that. In fact, in most cases, Andrew, we've just seen doubling down. So that's the case of the scenario. And I think it's funny to kind of go down memory lane on this stuff, Andrew. But, again, we were early on our analysis on a lot of this stuff. And, now we're just seeing not only Harold vindicated, but we're seeing some of our positions vindicated as well.
Oh, wait till the third segment, Matt. You just wait. It's going to get better. And worse, but better. Inflation through the roof.
Grocery prices up 11% year over year.
Censorship of dissident voices. Freezing of bank accounts.
Justin Trudeau invoking emergency powers against the truckers. Banks can now freeze their personal accounts, the accounts of anyone linked to the Freedom Convoy.
Digital surveillance and communism spreading.
What do we want?
Basic income!
With the basic income, I felt a sense of security because I didn't have to worry about
not going hungry, and I didn't have to worry about being kicked out of my apartment.
The government is on the verge of bankruptcy, and they're coming for your money.
Is Canada's federal debt increasing in real time, now surpassing $1.2 trillion. This debt is draining taxpayer dollars, with interest alone costing $54 billion this year.
It's time to break free and start saving in money they can't take from you. Since 2013, the folks at Bull Bitcoin have one mission: destroy central banking. Bull Bitcoin is the most trusted Bitcoin company in Canada. They empower you to buy, sell, and pay bills with Bitcoin. They are 100% non-custodial, which means that you always maintain full control over your Bitcoin, allowing you to reclaim your financial sovereignty and secure your wealth for the future. Their customer support will assist you throughout the whole process, helping you get your hands on the hardest money ever created. Escape their financial gulag, click on the link below, and start buying Bitcoin today and get a $20 bonus as a listener of Liberty Dispatch.
Boom. Let's go.
All right, let's move on. So there's a little bit of a theme to this episode. Obviously, the recent decision regarding Herald and this report from the RCMP. We're not pulling up old stories, but these are recent developments. But the theme is COVID era, convoy, lockdowns, mandates, all that stuff. So at the heart of the Freedom Convoy, I think people may forget, but really at the heart of the Freedom Convoy, what spawned this whole thing was the protest against the jab mandates. And it goes something like this. If you're a trucker and you own a business where you're going across the border into the States and back into Canada, and if you decided for whatever reason you did not want to get the experimental gene therapy injection because you were the hero, right? Our elected officials were praising truckers and first responders and nurses as the heroes when they were on the front lines before we had the jab and when they were bringing us our food when things were locked down. So if you were a trucker for the first year of the COVID era, going over the border, coming back, no problem. You probably got COVID and you had your natural immunity. Then all of a sudden they say, if you're a trucker and you don't have the jab, when you come back over the border, you need to quarantine for 14 days. And anyone who drives truck or knows someone who drives truck, whether they're an owner operator or work for another business, that's not going to fly. That'll destroy your business. So at the heart of the Freedom Convoy were truckers saying our businesses will be destroyed. That's our livelihood. That's food. That's our family. That's our income. And so it was a call to end the mandates, specifically on the jabs, because of how it would devastate businesses. Okay, so it was a protest for freedom. It was a protest for informed consent and for the right of Canadians to refuse medical procedures and run their lives and businesses the way that they want. So as time's gone on, what we've seen in monumental fashion is that the COVID jabs were destructive. And people, including these truckers, were absolutely right to question their safety, their efficacy, and their necessity. So we figured we would finish off our episode with a giant dose of I told you so, as we continue to see that the jabs were terrible and we were right in questioning them and warning others and also saying it is lawless and unscientific to mandate them. So a new study has come out titled Impact of mRNA and Inactivated COVID-19 Vaccine on Ovarian Reserve found this in the conclusion. Now, I'll preface by saying the study looked at the effect of the COVID-19 vaccine on rats and egg production in female rats. And it's not uncommon for rats to be test subjects because of similarities or enough similarities to human biology that if it negatively affects a rat in particular ways, it might also affect humans in a similar way. So this is what the study found. Quote, our findings suggest that both mRNA and inactivated COVID-19 vaccines may detrimentally impact ovarian reserve in rats, primarily through accelerated follicular loss and alterations in apoptotic pathways during, how am I going to try this word, folliculogenesis. Yeah, that sounds about right. Given these observations in a rat model, further investigations into the vaccine's effects on human ovarian reserve are needed. Close quote. That's their safe way of saying it looks like this is destroying the reproductive system in female rats, and it might do this in humans. So we should probably look into this a little bit. That's basically which again is no surprise given, I mean, we've exhausted the increase in stillborns and abortions and menstrual irregularities for women. I mean, the actual safety data on a lot of these, 80% of women who were pregnant who took the shot miscarried. I mean, this is nothing new. It's just more evidence that this is destructive for the female reproductive system.
Yeah, and Mike did some more recent episodes with Deanna McLeod on just the effect that the shots had on women in their reproductive system and just some of the data that they were seeing through OHIP and what have you. So I would recommend I'll try and scoop up those links and throw them in the description as always, so people can go back and do some review because I know this stuff will be a lot of review for people, but necessary review to kind of dive into just how we were vindicated in much of what we were saying and warning about. Andrew, the FDA has stopped recommending boosters for healthy Americans 64 years old and younger. So that's a change in position for sure. And that's actually a high age, right? So it just goes to show you. In a paper from the New England Journal of Medicine titled An Evidence-Based Approach to COVID-19 Vaccination, we read this, quote, over the past 5 years, the United States has moved towards an annual COVID-19 booster program. Each fall, COVID-19 booster shots are developed alongside seasonal influenza vaccines and are recommended for every American. As compared with vaccination policies in all European nations, the U.S. policy has been the most aggressive. While other high-income nations confine vaccine recommendations to older adults, typically those older than 65 years of age, or those at high risk of severe COVID-19, the United States has adopted a one-size-fits-all regulatory framework and has granted broad marketing authorization to all Americans over the age of 6 months. Ooh. The U.S. policy has sometimes been justified by arguing that American people are not sophisticated enough to understand age and risk-based recommendations. We reject this view. Well,
can I just say at this point that that's what they're basically saying there. So interestingly enough, we in my logic class, we're dealing with how to actually determine validity of arguments. And there was this quote from Ronald Reagan that we needed to put in its logical form and then test for validity. And the quote was something to the effect of, the role of government is to protect us from one another, but government goes too far when it says that its job is to protect us from ourselves. And Reagan was spot on, because essentially I think that the sentiment here is true, that the state said, you are unable to take care of yourself. You're unable to know how to wash your hands.
So infantilizing.
Get the sunlight you need and have a good diet and, make wise decisions to not spread. You're unable to do that. So daddy government has to step in. And it's funny. It's daddy government, but it's also mommy government. It's very matriarchal. It's very mom panic, helicopter parent, helmet, safety, bubble kind of parenting. We'll take care of you. You can't take care of yourselves. Trust us. We'll keep you safe. That's exactly the sentiment. If anyone says
effeminate tyranny.
Yeah. If anyone says, oh, no, they didn't believe that people weren't sophisticated enough, that's exactly what they believe. They believed that we were unable to make responsible decisions for ourselves, which is why they had to make them for us.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to interject that.
I think in talking about this, effeminate tyranny that you make mention of, we quoted C.S. Lewis at length, and he goes on to talk about the worst kind of tyranny is essentially the soft, effeminate tyranny, because they do it with the excuse of their own conscience. They're kind of over-preening moms who are exceedingly abusive, but they think they're justified in doing it because obviously they have to protect and nurture their little babies. And like the amazing part is this is it's such a ludicrous, like the average American doesn't understand the difference between a healthy, able-bodied young person and those who are elderly. Because actually, I think most Americans were saying, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. It seems like
you didn't do it with the accent. Can I do it?
Yes,
hold
you can
up.
Do it.
Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Yeah,
something ain't right.
Something ain't right. Because a lot of people instinctively knew that, wait, the people that are dying are actually past the average age expectancy, and it's really not affecting, like, that was like a, for lack of a better term, like a common sense analysis of the situation, right? That most people were very capable of making. And yet right here, in this report, it deems, well, we had to take this exceedingly aggressive vaccine schedule because Americans are too stupid to make that analysis, Andrew. They're just too stupid.
Yeah, too stupid and too irresponsible.
Yeah. Wow. That's one position to take. Anyways, which is actually, it's, I'm sorry, I keep going on random caveats here, but that is a position a lot of people took. Like, I remember talking to people who were justifying the COVID mandates and the tyranny. Oh, because everybody's stupid. So if the government doesn't respond as tyrants, everybody's too stupid to listen to them.
Yeah,
and then
because you're not an expert, you're not a scientist, you're not a virologist, you're not an epidemiologist, you're not an immunologist. Who are you? Who are you to say what you should or shouldn't do?
So how so dare you? Condescending, so elitist. And so
I'm someone who can read and someone whose memory extends to before March 2020. When we all agreed on certain things. So that's who I am. I'm someone with a brain that works.
And Andrew, doesn't and this is what a lot of us had pointed out, like, doesn't that totally reverse kind of the entire view of kind of law and legal status in free societies, right? The burden of proof is on those to prove guilt or that you're sick, or if you live in a society where you assume guilt and you assume ignorance and you assume you assume irresponsibility, then you can.
We live in a world where you're supposed to be healthy until you're proven sick, not sick until you're proven healthy.
Well, exactly. And if it's the other way around, then there is no delimitation to the power of the state.
Because everyone is potentially sick, or
everybody's a threat to everyone else,
potentially caring.
Yes. And like that is an assessment that is so unbelievably outrageous and dangerous. Like it's hard to even articulate how paranoid and insane that is, but that is and has been. Like that's well documented here in the report. That was the way, and that has been the way that our health institutions have dealt with COVID, which is totally and utterly insane. Anyways, the FDA has stopped recommending boosters for healthy Americans 64 years old and younger.
You already read that part.
I did. Sorry, You're
on the FDA's new COVID-19 philosophy. The second paragraph there.
Anyways, the FDA's new COVID-19 philosophy represents a balance of regulatory flexibility and a commitment to the gold standard science. The FDA will approve vaccines for high-risk persons and at the same time demand robust gold standard data on persons at low risk. These clinical trials will inform future directions for the FDA, but more important, they will provide information that is desperately craved by healthcare providers and the American people.
Did you read what they just admitted, Matt? Like, I'm surprised if people read that and don't throw their hands up in the air. They just admitted that up until 5 minutes ago, the FDA was not concerned with gold standard data on persons at low risk. That's what they just told us. Oh, that's what we're going to do now. Now we're going to demand it. We're going to demand it now.
They were concerned about selling and pushing vaccines, Andrew. That's what they were concerned
in
about.
May of 2025, now we'll demand gold standard data on persons of low risk. But they haven't. So not only did they admit that, but look at what else they didn't admit. They didn't admit that they should probably run clinical trials to see just how unnecessary they are for people at low risk. So right away, you should go, oh, that's right. So they were right. This wasn't about actual science. Because if it were about actual science, you would take into account people who are at low risk. You would take into account natural immunity. You would take they didn't take any of that into account. And they're just throwing this in there, and we're supposed to go, oh, yeah, FDA, you're going to do your job. But by saying that they're only going to start doing their job now, what they're telling you is that they haven't been doing their job for the last 5 years. That's what they've just told us. Mm-hmm. That's shocking.
Yeah.
And it's unsettling that they would admit, they'd be so open to admit, yeah, we didn't care about this stuff before. But now we care. Now we care. It's wild. So, but the FDA didn't stop there. They didn't stop there. They've decided, interestingly enough, to finally be at least a little more honest about what the jabs do to people. And it's not protect them from COVID. That's clear. So this is from CBS News. Quote, the FDA is telling Pfizer and Moderna to expand the warning labels on their COVID-19 vaccines about the risk of a possible heart injury side effect linked to the mRNA shots, primarily in teen boys and young men, citing findings from a study published last year and a new agency data. Orders to expand the warnings were posted Wednesday by the FDA in letters dated April 17 to Pfizer and BioNTech about their Comirnaty vaccine and Moderna about its Spikevax vaccine. Both vaccines previously carried warnings about how the risk of heart side effects, myocarditis and pericarditis, looked to be higher in young men, generally within the first week after vaccination. While the earlier label specified ages 18 to 24 years old for Moderna's vaccine and 12 to 17 for Pfizer's, new warning will apply to males age 16 to 25 for both vaccines. So both of them said it's kind of a little bit dangerous for the small group of men, but now both have to admit it's actually really bad for a larger group of men. Okay. Following administration of the 2023-2024 formula of mRNA COVID-19 vaccines, the highest estimated incidence of myocarditis and or pericarditis was in males 16 through 25 years of age. The FDA says in new blanket warning it will require for both vaccines. The rate of myocarditis and pericarditis was around 8 cases per million doses for children and adults under 65 years old after use of that season's vaccine, the FDA says. I'll just note here, that rate, 8 cases per million for children and adults under 65, that is such a shady, misleading statistic. To just say everyone under the age of 65, the amount of myocarditis cases were 8 cases per million. It's almost certainly the case that 8 out of those 8 cases did not occur in children prior to COVID. But now all of a sudden, with the emergence of the jab, now kids do get myocarditis and pericarditis, but they fudge the numbers to not make it seem so bad. But nevertheless, the new warnings ordered by the FDA add that the highest estimated incidence was in males 16 through 26 years of age with a rate of 38 cases per million. So 38 per million is not a lot. It is 400% more than 8, number one.
Yeah.
And almost 500% more, actually, just under 500% more. And also, again, you'll have to note that the incidence of myocarditis and pericarditis in basically anyone under the age of 25 prior to the emergence of the COVID jabs was more like 1 in 100 million.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot lower.
We're dealing with some real poison here.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, when you just think about like the fact that these people were not statistically at risk of any serious side effects of COVID, and that they were coerced, they were coerced by governments into putting this vaccine in their bodies without knowledge of the side effects and any of these warnings. We're talking about
not just without knowledge,
rolled out 4 years after the fact.
But they had the knowledge and they didn't disclose it. So it's not
well,
as if they
that's a
know.
really scandalous thing.
They did know and they didn't tell people.
Yeah, that's a scandalous thing that's coming out through men like Senator Ron Johnson, Peter McCullough, people, dogged individuals who are pushing to find out who knew what and when did they know it. It turns out, to add on to the story, that it was pretty obvious that when it comes to Pfizer, when it comes to some of these vaccines that we're talking about, that they knew in February 2021 that there was serious cardiovascular ramifications to taking the vaccines, especially in the youngest, most healthy individuals.
We covered a story where Health Canada had to admit that when they came into an agreement with Pfizer and Moderna, that Health Canada, again, this just came out recently, but initially, when Health Canada approved the jabs, they approved them with the clear understanding that they had no idea what that they had no idea that no safety testing had been done.
Yeah.
And that Health Canada knew no safety testing had been done, and Health Canada was okay with knowing that there no safety testing was done.
And then they were putting out, government paid for propaganda about the safetiness and the efficacy.
Oh, you mean when Dr. Tam had a conversation with Mrs. Claus? Remember that one?
Yeah.
Remember that creepy dystopian commercial?
Man, it seems like a lifetime ago. But that's crazy, though, right? Because there is actually cover up here, right? That we know for a fact now that they knew by at least
if all these manufacturers were liability free.
Oh yes, which was an absurdity.
Be awfully amazing for them if they don't get in trouble for forever, huh?
I wonder
why they would have done that.
Yeah, Operation Warp Speed is a true disaster. That it's an albatross that should be hung around the neck of Donald Trump. It's a disaster, and it had disastrous side effects, and it allowed for this moral landscape where you could have governments buying vaccines that they don't even know or care if they work, from companies who are making billions of dollars for this. Yeah, totally absurd. And the fact is, either, the government's just turned a blind eye, pre-approved it, and then we're still going to do their propaganda, or they knew the side effects, they knew how bad it was, and they just didn't tell anybody till well after. Because, Andrew, the higher priority again was vaccine uptake, was pushing these vaccines on people. It wasn't actually their health, and that's what we're seeing over and over again with these stories that are coming out.
But despite all this stuff, I'm kind of encouraged though. I'm encouraged because I remember, oh golly, this is years ago now. I remember years ago having conversations with people, you and I talking, people having guests on the show, and I remember back in 2021 and 2022 saying, "Listen, the truth can't stay hidden forever. Eventually this stuff will come out. Eventually we'll know the truth. Eventually it will. You can only suppress it for so long. You can only hide something in the dark for so long." And what we're seeing is that that's happening. So I'm encouraged by the fact that even though it's not going to get a ton of legacy media coverage, obviously, And even those people whose brains have been forever altered by the fear and anxiety and COVID, they're never coming back home. They're gone forever. So they might not, they might not realize what's happened. Nevertheless, this was one of the things that we held on to, was that the truth will come out. It can't stay hidden forever. It's not, you can't lie forever. It'll all get uncovered. And that's what's happening now. So I'm thankful that the lies and the cover up and the slander and the corruption did not remain hidden forever. It is coming out now, and people are, even though they're not properly repenting, at least they're, even if they're just doing a sweep it under the rug, at least now they're saying what's true, and at least now they're admitting what we've known. And that's a good thing, because it's evidence that when God says that everything that is hidden will eventually come out, you can't hide it forever. So we can trust God when he says something, and what he says comes to pass will come to pass. But also it's encouraging, because I think that even after this far, if people have forgotten or pretended like the last 5 years didn't happen, it is nice to be reminded, we weren't crazy. We didn't lose our minds. We weren't just the conspiracy, anti-science nuts pulling stuff out of nowhere. That no, we were making rational, reasonable decisions, that we were believing what was true, and that and that we stood by our principles, and we don't regret it. I think that's encouraging. I think we should be encouraged by that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there's a lesson in there for everybody. Stand on principle, stand on the truth, don't flinch. No matter the outcome, and you will be vindicated, right? We're going through the book of Revelation at church, and that is what really stands out. We just were in Revelation 12, and what comes out over and over again in Revelation is that God, the vindication of the saints of God, is the steadfast endurance of their testimony over time, that empires rise, empires fall, but the word of the Lord remains forever. The testimony of the saints remains, and that is ultimately their vindication. And that's the beauty of standing firm on the truth. You might die. You might be persecuted for it. But ultimately, it will prevail. And that's the great hope that we have. And that's why we need to press forward and be mindful of that continually, because that can be the wind in your sails when you're going through these seasons of real difficulty and you're experiencing intense persecution from ideological foes, whatever it might be. Standing on the truth, being steadfast, it is preparing a way of eternal glory. It will be vindicate you. It will be to your benefit. And I just think it's a very good lesson. Sometimes it takes 5, 10, 15, 20. Maybe you'll never see the vindication, but the truth will come out. And that's why we stand on the truth and stand firm therein. And we just want to encourage people to think about that, because I don't, Andrew, think the days of fighting and standing up and pushing back and, taking these types of stands that we saw with the Freedom Convoy, with, being against this soft coercion, the tyranny of the state and their overreach in every institution of life. And we're not done. COVID was a trial run for a lot of this. So we're not done. We have to work out these muscles because we're going to have to use them in the future. So though, the episode was largely a trip down memory lane, I think it's very helpful for us to reflect on these things. And hopefully it's not just nostalgic and we're saying, but hopefully it's giving us a really good lesson moving forward, that maybe we didn't get it right. Maybe we bobbled stuff. Maybe we had to repent. I mean, Lord knows I have had to do that. Others have had to do that. there was things we would do differently. But that's okay. Moving forward, and standing fast, it is something that, we can learn from. We can learn from all this. So it's been an encouraging episode, Andrew. Obviously some really good news with Harold, who hopefully, Lord willing, we'll be able to have on the program. You can have remember when we sat down, now look where we're at, type conversation with Harold. But yeah, I just want to encourage everybody, go over to our Substack page, ldcanada.substack.com. Check out everything that we got going on there. You can have full access to all our episodes, including our interview that we just released last week on Saturday with Sam Cooper. We have basically an entire 30+ minute segment in the back that you can only get if you're a paid subscriber. And it's really juicy stuff on Mark Carney's ties to China. And also we'll be having another interview released this Saturday with John Speed, a brother in Christ who's doing some amazing work on the abortion front. And if you want to see the full access to that, as well as our interviews with men like Dr. Joe Boot, P. Andrew Sandlin, and others, you have to become a paid subscriber over at ldcanada.substack.com. So we suggest that you go over there, check it out. And if you like what we do, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, smash the notification bell so you stay up to date. Engage with our content, leave us notes, reach out to us with any comments, questions, concerns. We would welcome it. All the information for contacts, for our various sponsors, everything is always in the description below. So as always, Galatians 5:1. Godspeed.
Liberty Dispatch has been brought to you by SDG Media. If you want to stay in touch with us on all things Liberty Dispatch, join our email list, or support the show, head over to ldcanada.substack.com.